So, welcome. I just wanted to start by just having a quick look at what I've got here on the D2L for you. Tonight, the only last thing remaining in this course actually is assignment 6. There is an assignment 7, and you'll see that down here. There's, well, that's tutorial 7. Oh, I haven't got a link for assignment 7. Well, you could find it if you really wanted it. You could find it in the content. If you went to week 14, you'll find that there's an assignment 7. You can look at it, which was a presentation. We originally thought that we'd get students to do the presentation in groups of 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 or whatever. But it turned out that got a bit of pushback on that. The students had a lot of tests they're preparing for, didn't feel they wanted to do that. That's okay. So the assignment 7 is there, though. It's optional. You don't have to do it. Some students have asked me about extra credit, and the idea occurred to me, well, if you thought you needed extra credit, maybe assignment 7 could turn into that. But that would only be for people who have completed all the other work. You know, if you haven't finished your other assignments, there's no point doing extra credit. You might finish the other assignments. So that's that. Assignment 6 is our last one then. Then there's a note there about the final exam. So you can see that the final exam is on the 18th, which is a Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's a morning exam. Sean Reed will be your invigilator. Sean Reed, he's kind of really cares about masks a lot. And he actually did tell me he's going to tell the students to wear masks. So I know in the exam rules, it says that masks are optional, but yeah, I know he's also going to tell you to wear it. So make sure you bring one with you so that you don't sort of have problems, you know, being thrown out of rooms and stuff like that. Okay, so Sean Reed will be your invigilator. That'll be in room 10133, which is where I am right now. So you've come to this room quite a lot of times. So a little bit about the test, the exam. As far as I know, it's going to be 30 multiple choice questions, and there's going to be 3 writing Python code questions. And writing Python code, you'll have to do some kind of if-elif type structure. You have to do some kind of iteration or a while loop, and you'll have to write a function and call it. We're going to do that today. I don't know about doing all of these things. We'll certainly do a while loop. Don't know about if-elif, but we'll do a function. So let's get started and look at today's exercise. And so, well, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about the exam? Have a look at those rules. Make sure you're familiar with those rules. The exam itself will be on D2L. It'll be with lockdown browser. And yeah, so it'll be full sort of security. You'll have to go through security. So you need to come to the college early so that you don't be late for the exam. All right, so let's look at this problem, assignment 6. It's really quite easy, so this isn't going to take long, especially since there's nobody here in the classroom with me to ask me questions. So let's have a look at it. Okay, so you can download it from the link here. I think there's a link for it. Yeah, assignment 6. You can download it from there. I've already opened it up here. And let's have a look at it. It says you're supposed to create Python. All right, so it's the same problem. It's called problem 1, 2, and 3. It's the same problem, but the difference between problem 1, 2, and 3 is some changes to the way we solve the problem. The problem is basically the same, but we make some little changes to the way we solve the problem. So in the first problem, we have a sentinel loop. And then in the second problem, we have a counted loop. And in the third problem, we change the whole thing to include some functions. So let's have a look at that. Write a program that asks the user to enter their name and grades for all the courses they took this semester. So straight up, when it says for all the courses, there's multiple courses, and we're going to get the grade and their name. Well, we only need to get their name once. Check that the name is composed only of letters. So the name composition of letters, we're going to have some kind of a test there. We could do an if, or we could do a while. You know, I like to do while, so I'll do a while on that. And And what else? It's a sentinel loop. So the grade is going to be the sentinel value that's going to make the loop stop or not. If you enter a value of -1, then you're going to stop. And we're going to calculate an average. So calculating an average, I think you guys know how to do averages. When we calculate an average, we always start with zeros, and then we have a loop and we add values to it. Salman's just come in, so welcome, Salman. Is that? Yeah, that thing's turned on. It'll show up in a second. And then we calculate the average based on the total divided by the count. So let's go ahead with that. The first thing that we need to do is we need to get the person's name, and the name has to be only composed of letters. So the name will be entered as a string, and then we have a test to make sure it is only composed of letters. That is, with a string, we can check to see if it's is alpha. So away we go with that. Let's just take their name. That's equal to an input value. And the input value, we have a prompt for the input, which is enter your name. Just take that. And now, if the name is a bad name, so here's our test of the name. We're going to do it in a loop. So while the test of the name is going to be like this, while name is alpha. That checks to see that all the characters in the name are letters of the alphabet. But if it's alpha, it's okay. What we actually want to do is we want to give an error message if it's not alpha. So we just say that. If while not alpha, while not is alpha, then we're going to give an error message. Now, where's the error message? Oh, the error message just says, please enter a valid name. So that's fine. So we'll do a print on that. And please enter a valid name. Actually, we could save some time on this, save one line of code if we just, instead of doing a print, if we made that an input. And just like that. So we got a slightly different input than last time, but it's still going to get the, oh yeah, not a plus, that's got to be an equal. So if they give a bad name, we're going to tell them to put it in again, and we'll get it, and we'll keep doing that as long as it's not, not is alpha. So the only way that we'll finish that loop is when it's is alpha. So that'll work fine. That's how we get the name. So I'm just going to put a little comment there that says this is to get a valid name. So that's what that bit of code does. Gets a valid name. Hey, Manya. And so then we have to, if we look at what happens with the rest of the code, and I'll put a little comment in here for that too. We get a valid name, and then we're going to enter the course, the grade for the courses, and we're going to get the average. So here we're going to get the average score or something like that. So you know how to get an average. You always start with your total is always going to start at 0, and you're going to start with a count being 0. Now this one is going to be a sentinel loop. So a sentinel loop is going to be controlled by the input from the user. The inputs from the user is going to be to ask them what is their grade for the course. So I'm just going to take that, and we're going to, this is going to be grade or score. I'll call it score just to be different. It seems to be an integer value. We could do a float. It's kind of unusual to have. Yeah, okay, well, we'll make it an integer value. And so we're going to ask them what's their score. And I've already copied the prompt for that. Yeah, okay, so the thing is that we don't want it to say course 1 all the time. Oh, it's okay for that one. I'll just leave it at that. And then we're going to have a while loop here because we're going to let them do the score more than once, right? So the while loop is controlled by the score. Score is the sentinel value. So while the score is not equal to -1, we had that instruction there, right? When it's -1, that's when we quit. So what are we going to do inside there? Well, we're going to add the score to the total. And we're going to add 1 to the count. And then we'll, because it's controlled by the score, we're going to put the score at the end of the loop again. So that's the way I like to do loops, is I like the thing that controls the loop. I want to set that up last thing before the loop happens. And then again, now we don't want to keep reading the same score, for course 1 all the time. We want to have it for other courses. And so we can do that by replacing that number 1 with a variable, and the variable would be the count, right? But it would be the count plus 1, because we start out with the count 0, and then here it's 1, and we've already done 1 there. So next time through, we want it to be a 2. And so that's going to, by the time that's finished, we're going to have a total and a score. And what we want to do is we want to do something with that. So we could have an average value, and that will be equal to the total divided by the score. So that's not right. The total divided by the count. My apologies. And then we just need to print it out. So we already have a way of printing that out, which is here. But look at that, it's got their name. Oh. So we're going to print their name. We don't want to say Sarah here. We want to have their name. So what would their name be? Well, their name is here. We've got their name, right? If you look here, we've got their name. Name. It's called name. We got that up there in the main. Sorry, in this thing here. Name. So let's just say that. Name. And the name is a string, so we can just add it like that. Your average for this thing is this average needs to be changed to a value as well. Sue. Well, that's at the end, so why not, right? Is, and then that we're going to take a number and put it there, and the number will be the average. I think that will work. So that's our first run at it. It's going to, we're going to get a good name here. And from the name, then we're going to do the calculation of the average score. Let's do that. Let's run it. And we'll call this assignment 6. Hello, Ralph. So let's see if we can do it the same as the test that they've got. If you put a name which doesn't have all characters in it, like this, SAR with the @ in it, it should come up with an error. Yes, it says, please enter a valid name. So that's worked out fine. Then if we put a Sarah like this, then we've got 9. I don't know why they do all 90s, but yeah, okay. So it's kind of dumb, but when we get to the 5th one, we do a -1. And it says the average is 90. Now, the thing is that this Sarah isn't printed the same as their Sarah. So we have to do something else with this. We said that we took the name, but you've got it's a string. So with strings, what you can do is you can convert them to different types of capitalization. Capitalize. So we can do it as capitalized type. And then that will print the name in the first character will be uppercase and the others will not. So again, if we that will say that that's not a good name. And then in lowercase, Or we can even do a dumb case like that. It should, so it's got these, I think 90 is a bad number, so I'm going to put some other numbers in there. And then I'm going to put a -1. And so we get a proper average that isn't just this 90. 90 is kind of a dumb number. So our average is actually 90.75. We had a couple numbers smaller, and see what it's done with the name Sarah. Though I entered it in like this, it put it as capitalized, which is only the first letter is capitalized and the rest are lowercase. We did that with this thing here, capitalize. Right, that's problem 1. So problem 2 is just to take problem 1 and change the loop. So we were using -1 to control the loop, but this is going to ask the user how many courses are you registered in. It's going to add, and then that's going to control the loop. So let's see how we would do that. So in other words, this thing here is not going to control the loop. That's not going to control the loop. We're going to control the loop with something else. So we're going to ask them, and I'll just do this separate down here, right? We're going to ask them, it's going to be an integer value. What could we use as a way to count how many courses they've got? Course count or something like that. Yeah. Course count. How many courses do you have this semester? Well, that's going to be equal to an integer input, and it's going to be this one that I just copied from here. How many courses have you registered in? How many courses have you registered in? Now we're going to use the course count to control this loop. So we've got course count here. We're going to use it to control the loop. So instead of controlling the loop with the score, we're going to control the loop with the course count. Okay. So we've got a count here. The score is no longer going to control the loop. So we've got 2 readings of the score. We only need 1. We're going to get rid of this one. And we're going to let the count control the loop. And so it's not, so we're going to have it, we're going to keep going until the count is equal to our course count, which is the number of courses that the people have put in. So course count won't be incremented, but count will. But count is going to control the loop, so it should be the last thing in the loop. And so we're going to put this thing, we need this for the total. So we're going to take this and we'll put it at the start of the loop. Now this rearranging things in the loop, it really is important. I'm not just doing it for fun. The loop actually wouldn't work if I didn't do this. So I tried to make this point to you in previous lessons, but the thing that controls the loop, that should be the thing that is set just before the loop starts. So here I'm setting just before the loop starts the count, and then it should be reset last thing in the loop. So I'm resetting it at the end of the loop. The score, if you go back and look at how we did that a minute ago, we changed it, right? But how it was a minute ago, the score was the thing that we had an extra line of code in here. And that score was the thing that was controlling the loop. But now it's the count that's controlling a loop. So it's a slightly different problem. You know what? I think that's all we have to do to change it. What do? We added a thing where we asked them how many courses they're going to do in this semester. Then we use that to control the loop. And so now the loop will be how many courses instead of ending with a -1. So we didn't need all that stuff about -1. So that's all this is. Let's run that and see. Can't read it there. So let's run it again. So this is problem 2. It's got a sample run. We'll do it with Anna and 4 courses, right? So Anna, I notice I'm doing lowercase just like it did. And we're going to do 4 courses. I'm not going to do all 90s because that's kind of lame. But notice it only let me do 4 courses. It counted exactly the 4 courses. It changed Anna's name from lowercase to capitalize. And of course, it did the average. So just look at the problem and you'll see how we did it. So looking at the problem, we started out, we asked them for their name. We checked to see that their name was only letters of the alphabet, no numbers or special characters. And if it wasn't, then we would ask them to put it in again. Then we asked them how many courses they needed to do. And we stored that as an integer. Then this bit here is all set up to do the average. You remember how we do averages? Averages are always this way. We set the total to 0, set the count to 0. Then we have a loop. We add to the total, we add to the count. Then after the loop, we calculate by the average is equal to the total divided by the count. That's it. Now I put these comments in specially because I was thinking about what we're going to do in part 3. In part 3, it's the same problem, but all it's asking is that we turn it into a program with a main and with a function. So we're going to have a function. I'm going to have a main. So now we're going to take stuff. Now this is the easiest way of making functions. So if you pay attention here, this might help you in making functions. I just got my code in here and I want to have a function. What I can do is I can say, well, this code, this could be a function, getting a valid name. So I'm going to make this a function. And I even have an idea how I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it valid name. Now it doesn't need to have any parameters passed to it, but it's going to pass out a name, which is good. So to make this be a function, all the code that's going to go into it needs to be indented. Every code is going to be indented one line more than it is at the moment, or sorry, one indent more than it is at the moment. So watch, I'm going to indent, indent, indent. And then down here, I'm going to return my value and it's going to be the name. And that's my function. Easy peasy. Now, all I have to do in the main is say, all right, I want a name. This will be my global name. So I'll call it gname. And that is equal to, how do I get it? Well, I get it by calling the function, which, or I should call it vname because it's a valid name, right? It's a valid name. The only name that's going to come out of here is a valid name. So I'm going to take that function, copy it. And so in the main, first thing that's going to happen in the main is it's going to give me my valid name. And it's going to do that by running all of this code. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's a function. Now this course count thing, that can go in the main. So I'm going to take that from there and I'm going to put it in the main. That's the next thing that happens. Right? Now, the average score, we're supposed to turn this into a function. Again, it's an easy thing to do. Turn that into a function very easily. I'll give it a name first. I'll call it average score function. And does it have a parameter? I don't know. Yes, it does. It's going to have a count in it. So count, I'm just going to call count C. Now, I shouldn't have done that. Everything inside this function is going to be from here to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab every one of those once. Even the ones that are already tabbed, I tab them one more time. Exactly one time. Right? And that's my, now C is going to be this thing, course count. So course count is going to come from here, and then we're going to run the average score based on course count. So that's very easy to do. We need a return value, which is going to be the average. So here I'm going to say that this is the return value. I'm not even going to put a variable in there. I'm just going to say I'm going to return that. And here is average. So actually, you see, I'm replacing average with my return value, just because it makes a shorter code. So here is where I'm going to call this function. So instead of average, I'm going to do average score. Now, the problem is I can't use C because C is a local variable. I need to use the global variable, which is course count. In the main, you have to, so here's my main. My main is only 3 lines of code. First line of code, get the name. But to get the name, we have to check to make sure it's a good name. So we've got a little function to do that. And when we're done with that, it returns a good name. And then we've got it there. Yes, actually, I need to change this too, don't I? This needs to be that good name. So we get the name. Then we get the course count, how many courses they're going to do. We return that. Then we use, then the next thing we do is we're going to run this function, which is called average score. Here, this tells us how many times we're going to do it. We're going to add all those scores up, and then we're going to calculate the average, and we'll pass the average out and we'll print it. That should work good. That's it. Run, converted to a program with functions. So let's run it. So enter the name. So we're going to enter the name with a bad name first. Okay. It's a bad name because it doesn't have all letters. And it just tells you to enter the name again in the proper way. So do it the proper way. And how many courses? 4 courses apparently. And they're all 90s. Well, now that's just dumb. You can't even tell if they've done any calculation with that. So 4 courses, it should finish after that. Yeah, there it is. Our average for the semester is that. Notice what it did with Anna. It took this and changed it to that. It capitalized. Yeah, that's the program. Works like a little ripper. All right, so I hope this makes sense to you. You can see also by looking at this, the way that we do functions. Function, 2 parts to it. We define the function here, and then we call the function. And if it's got a return value, we'll usually set that return value to something. Or we can just take the return value and print it. That's what's happening here. This has got a return value, returns the total divided by the count, which is average, as we know. And so we can do that. We can just print it here. We're just printing out the return value of average score when we did it for 3 things. Now I got 5 students there. So any questions? All right. So I'm going to stop recording then because there's no questions. I don't see anything on chat. Okay. Halas, any questions here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have